What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Eye on the U, the Miami Herald show about all things Miami Hurricanes. I'm your host, Andre Fernandez, joined as always by Jordan McPherson. Jordan, spring is more than halfway at this point. These Canes are starting to show a little bit, in spurts here and there, showing a little glimpses of what they're going to look like in 2026, coming off a national championship game appearance. Wish we could shed the word appearance, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And not have to specify that.
In due time, hopefully.
In due time for them, hopefully. Yeah. I mean, I'll put it this way. Every time I see that Fernando Mendoza dive to the goal line, look, well-deserved and all that, I'll walk into a Barnes & Noble and they'll have the magazine cover of him and all that. It's a reminder of how close Miami was to potentially winning a national title. And I'm sure that's one of the driving forces of this offseason for this team. But through 2.5 weeks, we're going to talk a little bit about just the impression that the players are having so far, the new coaches that are on Mario Cristobal's staff. How is that working out? How does the line of scrimmage on both sides look? Obviously, that was tremendously important to their success last year. And we'll look at some of the freshmen that have stood out so far in Miami's new look for the next season. And then we'll talk a little bit about transfer portal news regarding the basketball team. I know basketball season's over. Michigan won the national title, but the Hurricanes were a second-round team and one of the most amazing turnarounds this year in college basketball. So who's staying, who's gone, we'll dive into that a little bit. And the baseball team as well, turning the corner. I mean, we were a little down on them about a month ago, and all of a sudden those bats have woken up, 11 of the last 13. So the baseball team may be starting to come together a little bit. There's still some time to go before you can start thinking about regionals and who knows, maybe Omaha. But we'll dive into all of that. But, Jordan, what are your thoughts so far, going back to football, of course, of this team so far in the spring, kind of what stood out to you so far?
Yeah, I mean, we're 2.5 weeks in. Camp's only going – or spring ball is only going 4 weeks this year. They're wrapping up their spring game next weekend. And, I mean, my big thing, and I always try to caution this with spring, is – it's really an incomplete picture just because even though this is going to be the first time with no spring portal that you have your full roster, not everyone's going through spring ball. I mean, you have a few guys who have been either banged up or they're just being limited because of how taxing that run to the national championship game was. Like Mark Fletcher isn't going 100%. Couple of the receivers aren't going 100%. Some of the offensive linemen are moving in and out. Ahmad Moten on the defensive line's been in and out. Motori's been in and out. There have been a bunch of guys who they are understandably giving rest to. So while we're getting to see some glimpses of what this team might look like, we're probably not going to get to see the full picture of what this football team really is until camp starts in August ahead of the season. That said, there's been a lot to like. I mean, Malachi Tony still looks like Malachi Tony. His rapport with quarterback Darian Mensah, it's been immediate. And that was obviously sign one of what we wanted to see. The DBs, the DBs and the receivers, they've been going back and forth. It seems like one day the receivers are winning, one day the DBs are winning, which honestly for this team is good just because that secondary with losing Jacoby Thomas, losing Keontae Scott, they need to figure out how they're going to replace that talent. And for them to be able to go up and compete with the wide receiver core that Miami has is integral. They can go up against this receiving core on paper should be one of the best in college football this year. That's just a good sign for things to come. And both lines of scrimmage are a work in progress. That's probably just the simplest way to do it. We're going to go more in depth on them in a little bit, but both of those, you're replacing so much talent on both lines that Miami really is in a sense starting from scratch there. But the one thing, regardless of which individual groups are executing or shining on any given day or any given window that we're allowed to see, the main thing is just the effort level. And again, that goes back to Mario Cristobal's MO. He's not going to say everything is fine and dandy and rosy just because they're going through spring and they're getting in and out of practice and whatnot. No, if someone messes up, you're going to hear him. On Tuesday during the open portion, part of the bits that we got to see was offensive line versus defensive line. Defensive line dominated. Heatherman was having them do some stunts and whatnot, and Cristobal got into the offensive line. He let them hear it every time there was a failed rep. And again, it's only spring, but that's the intensity that this team needs to continue and carry on after the championship run. They can't just rest on the laurels of, hey, we made it to the championship game. We have a lot of guys coming back. We're good. Mario Chris will be like, okay, we got there, but we didn't get there. Right. And that's what we did last year. We got to flush it. There's no, we just say we made it to the national championship game. The Miami Hurricanes have to basically start fresh with that mentality, and he's implemented that through the first 10 practices thus far.
Yeah, it's so hard to like just dismiss so much that they accomplished and all of that, but you have to. It's like you said, it has to be a complete restart. Going back to Mensa, I wanted to ask you because, you know, Cam Ward, we got spoiled for a year of just how the pure ability to make, you know, not just the ability to play the position, but to even like to make plays. And he just, I was thinking about the team last year and how Miami had players again. We talked about Malachi Toney, who seems to be built that way, and guys like him that just have that it's hard to like say it in words, but they have that thing where we're not losing this game. You know, they have that little look to them, you know, kind of, I don't know. I mean, I know again, it's super early, it's in spring, but you almost hope that there, you know, Ward had that. Carson Beck, I mean, Ward had probably more natural ability to make plays. Correct. But Carson Beck had that too. He showed it in the playoffs, the win against Ole Miss with the touchdown at the end, the drive. Do you see anything at all, maybe even the tiniest bit already out of Mensa, maybe that gives you an inkling of this kid may have a little bit of that too?
Yeah, well, I mean, you certainly hope so, and that's what Miami Hurricanes hope is the case. You see some things in practice. And again, we only get about 20 minutes of viewing for practice twice a week. But, I mean, there are like him going over to his receivers after a play or after doing routes on air or after an 11-on-11. He'll be talking with the guys, and that's obviously the first key is that communication that, okay, what did you see here? What were you looking for? Maybe we try this, maybe we try that. But one thing is we haven't talked with Darian Mensah yet, so we haven't had the true opportunity, the media, I should say, to really start to understand who he is, pick his brain a little bit to figure out his processes, how he functions. Obviously, we can hear it secondhand. We can hear it from Mario Cristobal talk about how great he's been. The offensive lineman talked about how great he's been. Malachi Toney talked about how the connection with them have just how they've hit it off and how they've been doing stuff, whether it was on the field or off the field. Malachi Toney talked about how shortly after he committed and transferred that they went on a trip together. They've worked out together before practices started and whatnot. So the effort's there, the want-to's there, but I don't want to go and start making assumptions until I actually have the opportunity to sort of get to know Darian Mensah and hear it from Darian Mensah. Once I get his personality and understand his vibe and understand where he's coming from and hearing it from him, that's when I'll start to be able to make a better assessment. But he does show shades of Cam Moore. He does show shades of Carson Beck in terms of what he can provide to this team. And if he's able to just be part of that next line, which again, we saw what Cam Moore did. We saw what Carson Beck did. We know how much talent is surrounding him on this offense. So there are enough pieces there for him to be successful if he's able to put in the work and is able to execute the way that the Hurricanes think he can and what he was able to show that he could do at Duke as well.
What about some of these new additions we mentioned before on the coaching staff? What have you heard? How's that relationship going with with tight ends coach Mike Vitti? I know we talked about a lot with his background, and running backs coach Fabian Upshaw too. Like, how's that working out so far?
Yes, we got to talk with both of them last week, Fabian Upshaw and Mike Vitti, and they're both just impressive. I mean, Mike Vitti again played at Army, graduated Army, was deployed in Afghanistan. Coached the Army for a decade before coming over to Miami. You can tell just his persona, his personality. All of the principles that he learned while serving and while coaching for a program like Army, you can just see how much he's able to instill what he learned, those principles, those qualities into being a coach. Let me pull up a couple of the quotes again. He was just an absolute phenomenal interview with it. And he talked about how he basically says that anybody who has served can be a coach. Basically, the principles are the same, even though it's two different fields. Coaching and serving for your country are two different things, but there are so many principles and so many qualities that just apply to both of them. The exact quote that from when I asked him how serving in the military prepared him, his quote was, "Service is leading. It's a servant-minded business, but it's technical skill acquisition and implementation. And really, the parallels to football and being an officer and coaching and being an elite teacher are all similar. I found that just to be true through my time in Army. Certainly coming to Miami, it's a new system. It's cultural. It's the silver accord amongst all of us and how to connect people and emotionally drive them and move them. There's a lot of really good things to pull from there, but I would argue that really every really good coach would make a really good officer and vice versa. I found that to be true just through my time as a coach and while serving. Again, it's just he knows how to take what he learned and contextualize it into football. And he's going to have to do that with, again, you look at the tight end group, he knows that among all the positions on this offense, well, yes, the offensive line is replacing a lot of guys. That tight end room is probably the group that has the most to prove on this Miami Hurricanes team. I mean, Elijah Lofton, everyone was hoping he would be the breakout guy last year. Injuries really derailed that and didn't really give him a chance to show his full potential. And you'll have him. You have a couple of the incoming freshmen, Israel Briggs and Gavin Mueller, sophomore Luka Gilbert, to take another step forward. So how Mike Vitti is able to extract the best out of that tight ends group is going to be very fascinating to watch. And then Fabian Upshaw is sort of in the opposite situation in terms of the room that he has, because everybody's back from that room. Mark Fletcher's back, Marty Brown's back, Jordan Lyle's back, Gerard Pringle's back, and now you add Jaden Mallory. You have 5 running backs who you could draw a name out of the hat and go, okay, yeah, you're fine. You can do 15 carries today. Draw another name. Oh, Mark Fletcher, you're going to be the number 3 back. You'll be the number 3 back. Just kill everyone in the fourth quarter. Yeah. And that's sort of the way that Shannon Dawson likes to approach his running back room. He said that when we talked to them at the beginning of camp, going, running backs, they take the most abuse, and we like to spread that around so it's not just one person taking a beating week after week after week. And by the end of the season, we have nothing.
Right.
That's why that's why Mark Fletcher was able to thrive in the playoffs, where, yes, Fletcher missed a couple games midway through the season, but Gerard Pringle was able to take the heavy burden for a couple weeks. Marty Brown was able to take the heavy burden for a couple weeks. And then once they got into the playoffs, you have freight train Fletcher, who looks like he looks like the season's just starting, and boom, is able to get 500 plus yards in 4 games. Yeah. And the main thing on Upshaw's side is going to be 5 guys, 1 ball, plus the stack receiver core. How does he make sure that room stays as up to the task, stays as ready as possible, even when there may be weeks where some guys who you think are going to be the number 1, number 2 may not touch the ball. They have to rotate everything around, and just how does he keep everyone on board with that plan? We saw how Matt Mary was able to do it last year. And I mean, we know how that room is made up just in terms of the character of that room. They know the job. They know the responsibility. They should be good, but it's going to be interesting to see exactly how he handles that as the season progresses.
Yeah. And you're talking about character, and I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, you have to have the lack of big egos in terms of that, because, if you're 10 games into the season and you only have, 400 or 500 yards, but everyone has 400 or 500 yards, and collectively you're one of the powerhouse running games in college football. That's the thing. It's like, it has to work that way. It has to be part of a collective. And that's the good thing that Shannon Dawson has in the way he's approached this. Just overall, Jordan, what are your thoughts? I know we were going to talk a little bit more about the football team before we switch gears and start talking a little bit of hoops. I know what I wanted to start with. The defensive side, those standouts you were talking about before. We talked about both lines of scrimmage. Let's start with the defense. Obviously, big names to replace, as we've said before. Anybody kind of jumping off the page at you, what you've seen, the little bits that you've been able to see?
Yeah, well, on the D-line, obviously, you're replacing Ruben Bain Jr. and Nakeem Mesidor. You're not going to do a 1-for-1 swap there. That's just going to be flat out impossible. It's going to be a by-committee approach, but the main guys who have been standing out, obviously you have Marquise Lightfoot and Armando Blunt are the 2 key returnees who should be able to see a lot of time. Marquise Lightfoot was used heavily on pass rushing downs. Armando Blunt was able to go inside and outside depending on the down and distance situation. So he's versatile. He's able to do a little bit of everything. Damon Wilson, who the transfer from Missouri, was a big pass rusher for the Missouri Tigers last year, should be able to continue in that type of role this year. The main guy who I am looking forward to the most and seeing what he can do is Hayden Lowe. 5-star freshman, 5-star from the 2025 class, was supposed to be part of the rotation last year, got hurt right before the season started, missed the entire season, took a red shirt. He's just an athletic freak and should be able to jump right into that rotation with those three, with Wilson, with Lightfoot, with Blunt, Herbert Scroggins III. He should be part of the mix as well. So you got 5 guys who are really going to be integral in replacing Mesidor and Bain. And that's where they're going to have to rely. They're going to have to rely more on their depth, more so than the top tier, front end, high level talent. And that's not to say that these guys aren't high level talent. It's just when you go from Bain and Mesidor to your next group, you know that it's going to be a by committee approach. That's how they're going to have to work on the edge. And then when you go look inside at the middle, Justin Scott and Ahmad Moden are going to be your 1-2 punch. They're just going to have to be. And again, Ahmad Moden isn't doing much right now this spring. He played through an ankle injury throughout the college football playoff run, and they're just taking everything as easy as possible with him until everything starts picking up again in the fall. Completely understand that. Again, you don't want to risk doing anything to him that you don't have to do. So Justin Scott and Ahmad Moden are going to be the main 2, and then they have a couple transfers who came in. Jarquez Carter from Ohio State, Keonla Davis from Nebraska. Keonla is interesting to me. He's similar to Armando. He's able to play Armando Blunt. He's able to play inside. He's able to play outside. They're using him primarily on the inside right now just because they have less numbers there, and he's more of a natural defensive tackle. But if they need him to, or they want him to go out on the edge and have Armando be more of an interior for a pass rush or a blitz situation, they have some versatility along the defensive line to be able to do that as well.
And on the offensive line, obviously one of the most important units on this team that was so much better, so key to Miami's run last year. Who's kind of jumping out at you?
Yeah, so again, the offensive line, they're replacing 4 guys. Again, you're replacing Francis Malinois at right tackle. You're replacing Markel Bell at left tackle. You're replacing Inez Cooper. You're replacing James Brockermeyer. The interesting notes for me right now are Jackson Cantwell, their top signee from their.
We had mentioned him
class.
being one of the enticing ones for sure.
Yeah, he is right now looking like the front runner to be left tackle. He has been getting the majority of his reps out of left tackle. Matt McCoy, who split time at left guard with Samson Okunlola last year, is at right tackle. Those have been your 2 primary guys at tackle. Now, just a reminder, Alex Mirabal cross-trains the entire O-line. All the tackles get reps at guard. All the guards get reps at tackle. If they feel comfortable with you snapping the ball, you get reps at center. Speaking of center, Ryan Rodriguez, 6th-year senior, Miami Columbus guy, who has bided his time trying to get into the rotation. It's his job to lose at center right now, which is great to see for him. I mean, he's persevered, he's pushed through, he's waited his time. He was supposed to be one of the guys rotating in at guard 2 years ago in 2024, started the season opener against Florida, got hurt right at the start, and just was never able to get back. So he's been trying to get back to that starting caliber type spot, and he's finally there. And Alex Mirabal said if it wasn't for them bringing in James Brockermeyer, they were confident that Ryan Rodriguez not only would have been able to start for them, but probably could have started for just about any other ACC team. That's how confident they are in him. And that's how, honestly, grateful they are that he stayed the course. So again, in the transfer portal era, it's just, if you're not starting, you leave and try to find opportunity elsewhere.
Right.
Rodriguez has stuck the course, which is good for him. It's good to see, and hopefully that pays off for him. And as for the guard spots, you have a couple different guys who are going through there right now. Samson Okunlola is one of your main guys. And then you have, blanking on my names right now, you have Max Buchanan, who was part of the 2025 class. Looks like he's going to be one of the main guys at right guard. But they have, again, with Alex Mirabal there, they have 7-8 guys who are beyond the right now what looks like is going to be the starting 5. That should be able to come in and play. It's just a matter of how quickly do they get the chemistry after being the number 2s or being guys who are just coming in after having an offensive line that had been together for 2 to 3 years. How quickly they build that chemistry with themselves and then with their new quarterback is going to be integral with how quickly the offense takes off.
Yeah, those are the key questions because, when you had, like you said, that's the whole thing with O-line. It's that continuity, knowing each other well. but having depth too is another thing. And if you lose 4 starters, they're going to need a lot of those guys to be ready, to be durable, especially, and that's going to be key for that unit. Definitely. Last year, we got spoiled by one talented freshman in particular, and we all know who that was. But so far in camp, I know you said he still looks just as good, if not better, hopefully better, because he has to take a jump during sophomore season over there. But who else that's coming in now? Maybe, I mean, I'm not saying maybe that good, but anybody that's sort of stuck out to you in the spring that maybe you think this guy's going to make an impact right away.
Well, first off, I'm glad you're mentioning Bryce Fitzgerald here because, again, his 6 interceptions are absolutely incredible. But yeah, he and Malachi Tony completely set the stage last year.
True.
Again,
they both did, but if Malachi put it like somewhere where the Artemis
no doubt. Yeah.
And then Bryce, look, he also set the bar high, but it was like 2 levels of excellence there.
Yeah. But I'm going to continue. I'm going to go with a player at both of their positions to just fittingly enough. Malachi Tony himself singled out Samarian Wingo, who's one of the 4 receivers from this class. I'm high on Samarian Wingo. I'm high on Milan Paris, but I feel like just Wingo, just his skill set fits with the outside receiver role that, again, those are the spots that are going to be up for grabs. Again, we know Malachi Tony's going to be in the slot. The outside receivers, you've got a very healthy competition between Samarian Wingo, Milan Paris trying to get reps out there, Josh Moore trying to make an impact as a sophomore, and then the guys who they brought in, Cooper Barcade, Vandrevius Jacobs, Cam Vaughn from the transfer portal. There's a lot of bodies competing for only so many reps, only so many spots. But if any of the freshmen are going to be able to have a chance to break out and potentially get some of those key reps, I think it's going to be Samarian Wingo. And then on the defensive side, it's got to be the secondary specifically. It's got to be JJ Dunnigan. Again, he's the safety right there. He looks the part. He looks like he can be another Bryce Fitzgerald. And I know we talked about him last time, but he has a knack for finding the ball in practice, which was sort of what happened with Bryce Fitzgerald and how he was able to get his playing time. It was wherever the ball was, Bryce just seemed to go up and find it and go up and get it. If JJ Dunnigan can show shades of that as the rest of spring continues and as fall continues, I can easily see him basically taking the Bryce Fitzgerald route of last year, where it's you put him in there for 10 to 12 snaps, you put him in there for the positions or the situations where he should be able to thrive. And then if he does well there, find a way to expand his role as the season progresses. And again, Bryce Fitzgerald's most likely going to be a full-time safety this year with Zachariah Poyser. They still have the nickel spot they have to figure out. Omar Thornton seems like a primary candidate for that, the Boston College transfer American Heritage alum.
Right.
But JJ Dunnigan could make a push for playing time at either of those spots, as a rotating guy at safety or as a rotating guy at nickel, which are 2 of the bigger spots and the more prominent pieces for a Corey Heatherman defense. And he's showing the knack so far, but it's a matter of how much will it translate. But if it does translate, they've got some good young talent on their hands in the secondary, if that can happen.
The secondary was one of those squads, obviously, that was like night and day from 2 years ago to last year. Needs, obviously, with some losses there too, needs to improve. Jontavius Wyman is another one I've heard chatter about at the corner spot. Has he had a decent spring, in your opinion?
Yeah, he's been good. But again, also with corners, I mean, you look at their group. I mean, they returned all 4 of their corners from last year. They've got Xavier Lucas back. They've got OJ Frederic back. They've got Ethan O'Connor. They've got Damari Brown. They have and they have Jabari Antoine.
They have
Jabari Antoine out there as well. So they have a lot of pieces. And again, it's a good problem to have. Right. And at this point, it's a needed problem to have because, again, there's no spring portal. So you need to have all of your depth and you need to start building out that depth and turning it into competitive pieces that could take the field. Because if they end spring and go, oh crap, we only have 3 guys we can count on the cornerback, and one of those guys get hurt, they can't go in the portal and pick someone up. What they have right now is all they have. They can't go and grab an Xavier Lucas. They can't go get a Mo Torre. They can't go get this guy, that guy, whatever after spring ball ends because Guys can't enter the portal anymore. They're already, what they have is all they have. So they have to work with what they have, and they have to start strategizing and start getting a better understanding of what they have right now, because there's going to be no way to augment or supplement the roster after this.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be an interesting ripple effect, not just here at Miami, but around the country, how that works out, with certain teams having this basically set everything up earlier than they were used to. And like you said, not being able to reload or patch up a spot here if there's a serious injury or something like that. Well, let's speaking of patching up, there was definitely a lot of that for the basketball team last year in a good way. And one of the most remarkable turnarounds, Jay Lucas being recognized, ironically enough, on the national level more than he was as the ACC Coach of the Year, which at least not going to go too much onto that, but let's just say
it was well deserved at the national level, and we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. But he's going to have to do some of that again, a lot of that again after this year, because as you look at this roster turnover that is already being dealt with at Miami, key guys that left. We know Malik Renault is gone. We know
Trey Donaldson.
Trey Donaldson is gone. We know True Washington has hit the portal, so he's gone. So some key losses to some of the major architects. Ernest Uday, also a senior. Some key of the key pieces that were responsible on the court for this. A lot of them are gone, but two of them came back. So according to reports, our Michelle Kaufman writing that Shelton Henderson has decided he's going to come back and run it back with Miami. And on a selfish personal note, I'm glad to see Dante Allen was one of those people too. We know Dante Allen from his days at Riviera Prep, and of course his connection to the Miami Heat through his father. And he started the year on the bench and was one of the players that probably progressed the most. If you look at Miami's roster this past year, really carved himself an important role in their starting lineup by midseason, and then during that important stretch run that they had to get to the second round. So two pieces to continue to build around, but some work to do for this squad as they try to reload and maybe make it farther in the tournament next year.
Yeah, I mean, I will say having two pieces to build around is already two pieces more than Jay Lucas had to start off last year. So, I mean, remember his entire roster, he started everything from scratch last year.
Right.
So to have two guys who already understand what he wants implemented and have been a key part of making this process happen, that's already a bigger start than you have from last year. And it's two critical guys. I mean, Shelton started every game last year, averaged 13.8 points, almost 5 rebounds, shot about 57% from the field. He had 15 points against Missouri in the first round and had the team high 18 in the second round game against Purdue. Dante Allen, like you said, moved into the starting line of the back half of the year, 18 starts overall, 6.5 points, almost 3 rebounds and 2 assists per game. Those are building blocks. Those are two very key pieces. And then when you add in Caleb Gaskins from Columbus and start highlighting their freshman class that's going to be coming in, those are 3 very good starting points for this team.
Yeah.
Now it's a matter of figuring out what Jay Lucas is going to have to do to finish rebuilding the roster. We saw the success that he had through the portal and through all the signings and whatnot last year. Now it's a matter of, and we also, again, we know his recruiting history when he was at Duke as well. So now it's a matter of, is he going to build on it, or was it a one-year wonder? It's going to be these next couple of weeks to start to see how everything unfolds. It's going to be interesting to watch.
And that's the other thing too. Like last year, you said starting from scratch, not just in terms of the roster, but he had to plant the seeds of his coaching style, the culture that he wants to build there. All that now is in place. And now, not just for the guys that are there that already know that, but even for the players he's recruiting, he can already show them what it's all about. And he has something to point to now and say, hey, look how this worked. If we do things this way, we've got the evidence that this can be a pretty good team, a special team. Going back to Gaskins too, and I think I've said it before, how much I thought he developed over the course of his senior year. I mean, when I saw him as a junior, granted, he's on the same team as the Boozers, and they're going to get the spotlight naturally, but he seemed like a presence in the paint, a guy who was athletic, a tall body at 6'9", and all of that. But I feel like he got better defensively this past year. He became a better scorer and developed his shot. I didn't realize he had the range that he had, and it was kind of like when Cameron Boozer was a freshman or sophomore, and you'd see the big, you'd see the size and everything, and you're like, damn, this guy can hit threes too. And Caleb wasn't like that the first time I saw him, and he developed his shot better, mid range as well. So this is a more complete player, is the point I'm making, that's joining them. So in a way, you're counting, even though he doesn't have the collegiate experience yet, but it's almost like having three pieces to build around instead of just two. And he's a homegrown. Andrew Moran is on the bench there. His coach in high school knows him, completely knows what he's all about coming in. So that's another boon to have, another recruit like that. And it's only the beginning. They obviously are going to hit the portal and see what they can get. I mean, that's the whole question, is can they work their magic again through the portal and be able to bring in some pieces? I mean, I've told you, Jordan, and I think you agree with me. I think they need that, at least maybe like one player who can just be that long distance threat.
Yeah, they need a pure shooter. That's definitely should be priority one in this cycle. Yeah.
So we'll see what they can do. I mean, it was a special year and a turnaround year, and I'm glad that Coach Lucas is finally getting some acknowledgement for what happened. I mean, I know everybody was like, "Oh yeah, it was a completely new roster," but it still has to click. It still has to work, and it did. And had it not been for them running into a major obstacle in the second round, maybe we were talking about Miami at least on the second weekend of the tournament as well. So we'll see what they've got to do. Another team who's aiming big now is the baseball team. They did from the beginning. They said it from the beginning. Omaha, look, in the heyday when this stadium was still standing and down the road you had the tradition that you had at Mark Light, it was a given. You didn't even have to bring up Omaha. It was just automatic. After that kind of dwindled in recent years, I feel like now with JD Arteaga there, I mean, he was there both as a pitcher and Nader as a coach. It's coming back a little bit, that mentality of that's the standard that they have to get to. So there was a rough patch, including that loss of the Duke series, but now 11 out of 13, Jordan, I mean, yes, and there's still a lot of time. There's still, about a month or so left to go before they hit the ACC tournament and et cetera. But this team's starting to look a little more complete again. And I think a big part of it is the offense. I mean, guys like Derek Williams, hitting over 400, 13 home runs, I believe. Daniel Cuvette has shown his power. He has 11 home runs so far. And a lot of guys, this is something that we weren't used to seeing anymore for a while there. I mean, it's starting to come back recently. You look at that lineup, for a while there were not 5 or 6 guys hitting 300 and up. It was a lot of those ugly averages on those. And not that average is everything, but it shows you that they're consistently hitting again.
Yeah, no, I mean, every regular in their lineup right now is hitting 299 or better.
Right.
Every all but one have an OPS over 800. 8 guys with 20 RBI. It's just there's no break 1 through 9 in this lineup when they're hitting. And again, there were a couple times where, again, the Florida series is the one I go back to. It was early in the season, yes, but it just, you could tell that. And then the Boston College series the week after, it was just, they put a lot of pressure on themselves to try to get things going early. And because they had such high expectations that they knew that they were going to carry things, and they let it get to them too much, too early. And now after that Duke series, which I think I remember texting you after the series finale, where it's, again, I don't think I've seen many games where you get run ruled after scoring 10 runs yourself. But the series finale, they lost that game 20-10 in 7
football
innings.
Score.
Yeah. And I was just like, I think I texted you going, well, I don't think we'll have to worry about too much in the postseason. I
know that's a put a pin on that text. Yeah. If they go to Omaha later, put a pin on that text.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like our text after the loss at SMU.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, the offense has come to life since. I think they've scored at least 6 runs in just about every game since then. And they know what they're doing. Pitching is still a cause for concern at times. I mean, Rob Evans has been really establishing himself as a starter. AJ Siskar's been dealing with some injuries and whatnot. They still don't have a tried and true number 3, although Lazaro Calera is starting to find himself a little bit. But they need to find some confidence in their arms, particularly in their bullpen, once they get past their starters. But they have 6 weeks left, and really their real tests are going to be coming down the road. This weekend they're playing Wake Forest, who's normally a power, but has gone by the wayside a little bit this year. I think them and Miami are right around the same spot in the ACC standings. They're hovering around 6th and 7th in the conference right now. But their last 3 conference series, at NC State, home against the Louisville team they lost to in the Super Regionals, and then at FSU, who has been one of the top teams this year. They are going to get tested very much right before the ACC tournament, and then, assuming they're able to keep up their run, the NCAA tournament. They'll get that very big test right at the end. That'll be the perfect litmus test to determine and tell us what this team is, who this team is. But for now, they've got a couple weeks to start, get ready for that Wake Forest this week, Cal next week, and then full steam ahead after that.
And logistically, at least, the tough part always when you have to go out west, they have a trip to Stanford, as well on that, and at least in terms of just the logistics of a West Coast road trip.
Yeah.
So yeah, still some challenging spots ahead, but that's the thing. Like, and I've always, and you and I have both covered pro baseball a ton over the years. That's in our background, and I like teams that lean on pitching a little more than hitting. And that's not a knock and saying, like, this is a welcome, trust me, this is a welcome sight. What you just said about everyone $2.99 and up, for so many years recently, it was $2.99 and down most of the time for this lineup. So to see this is a resurgence that's important and a great sight to see if you're Miami and their coaching staff. But pitching is the rock, and always has been to me, of all successful teams, in whether it's at pro, college, you name it. So it has to get a little better if they really want to make a run, is the point I'm making. If they really want to make a true run to Omaha or more, or who knows what, that has to improve collectively.
Yeah, I mean, collectively as a team, they have a 4.6 ERA. Right. They have 1.35 walks, hits per innings pitched. Again, it's just those numbers aren't going to be sustainable, especially against heightened competition and teams that are able to mash just like this team does. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see if the pitching staff can turn a corner, but at the very least, they need to do what they can to make sure they're not losing the game for the team. If they can do enough to make sure that the offense is able to keep them in the game, they might be able to hold on, but it's going to be a very dicey situation, I feel like, depending on how things shape up down the stretch. But one quick milestone, you touched on Cuvée. He has 11 home runs this season. He is 9 away from tying the school record for career home runs. He's at 50. He's at 53 right now, just past Yonder Alonso for third. Pat Burrell is second at 61. Phil Lane from 1982 and 1984 has the record at 62. He is 9 away, and has half a season to do it. That's gonna be a fun run to watch as he closes things out.
Yeah, that there's a name I haven't heard in a long time, Jordan. I mean, and no, I did not watch Phil Lane live. Just to have our old moment of the week. Although I had a professor named Phil Lane at Miami-Dade, totally different person, was a mentor of mine. Always made me think of the baseball player name too. But yeah, that's interesting because people always think Pat Burrell's the record holder. Pat Burrell had like the most unbelievable one season in particular that everybody remembers that propelled him to what he became later in the major leagues and whatnot. But yeah, you never know, because this team last year wasn't hitting very well overall during the season, and then they got hot at the end. They tore it up toward the end, the ACC tournament, and it springboarded them within one victory of reaching Omaha. So maybe this happens with the pitching staff. Yeah. Maybe they start to mow down people in the clutch toward down the final home stretch.
Again, college baseball is so streaky at times as well. Teams get high at the moment's notice. We saw that last year. So yeah, I mean, anything's possible. And this team showed us last year that if they get things clicking, they're a tough out.
Yeah,
they've shown it a lot over the last couple weeks here that when they're at their best and when they're competing and when they're aggressive, they're a dangerous team. And it's just a matter of, can they sustain that, or can they do enough of that over these final 5-6 weeks? and then in the ACC tournament get enough momentum to try to make some noise in the NCAA tournament. That's going to be their key over the second half of the season.
Yeah, like you were saying about not blowing games. I mean, look, last night they're playing FIU, and that game is 9-2, I believe. And all of a sudden,
9-2 going to the 9th. Yeah,
all of a sudden it turns into an adventure, and that's what you can't have. You can't have that, no matter if it's the midweek game against FIU or, like you said, a clutch ACC opponent coming up.
Yeah, I will say though, I'll take that experience over the 9th inning collapse that I had to see in person the other night on Tuesday while that was going on at Lone Depot Park. I will just Marlins up 2-0, 2 outs away from a second consecutive shutout for Sandy Alcantara, and then he gets pulled, the game gets tied, they lose in extra innings.
I was gonna say something. I mean, I'm like, we could talk about that on the Marlins. Oh wait, we don't have one. Never mind.
Yeah.
Wah, wah.
Yeah. Okay. Enough of an aside on that. UM baseball, looking good. Let's see if they can keep things going.
Right. Well, and if you're a fan of the Mark Light Shakes, you've got 11 chances left this regular season, unless Miami hosts a regional, and then maybe you had a few bonus chances to get one.
And a reminder for the regionals, because there are 4 teams, they do specialty shakes for each team that they're hosting. So they will have 3 specialty shakes in that occasion. So
if that's not motivation to get a 1 seed in the regional round, I don't know
what is. Yeah,
exactly. So we'll see if that pans out. We'll keep updating you on how they're doing, how all 3 teams are doing, as 2 of them obviously in their off seasons, and then the baseball team heading for this home stretch pretty soon. Thanks for watching Eye on the U. As always, remember you can catch us on YouTube, and we'll be back, I believe, maybe next week. Oh, spring football. We wanted to give an update of what's left. The spring game on the 18th, and
yes.
And then how many practices more or less? Left
they have 1, 2. Let's see. I believe it's 3, 4, 5, 6 left. They have 6 left. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, it's 15 practices. The spring game is the 15th. Thursday will be practice number 10 for the team.
Okay. So as of this recording,
there are 6 left.
5 after. Yeah.
Yeah. 5 after. And then as soon as they're done, the week after that, we have the NFL draft where potentially 3 guys going in the first rounds and as many as possibly 8 or 9 getting selected overall.
Yeah. And interesting, this story, not necessarily UM related, but Fernando Mendoza, speaking of, I know I mentioned him earlier, gonna party at home, it sounds like. Not making a trip to Pittsburgh.
And honestly, I mean, that makes it makes the most sense to him. Just, I mean, we know the family background. I mean, you've talked with his parents multiple times. You know how connected and how close he is, especially with his mom, everything she's going through, and wanting to share that moment with them. I honestly would have been more surprised if he did go to Pittsburgh than if he stayed home.
It's so him that I was like, you know what? Yeah, I could totally see that. See that. So good for them, and I hope it's a great occasion that everyone expects it to be. If the Raiders do what everybody thinks they're going to do, and they pull the trigger and get their new quarterback right here from Miami. So we'll talk about that too down the road, and we'll be back for our next episode of Eye on the U. As I said before, thanks everybody for watching. Enjoy what's left of spring football and baseball and everything else, and have a great weekend. For Jordan McPherson, I'm Andre Fernandez, and we'll see you next time.